Hello, Michael.
Hello, Gennady. How are you?
Yeah, it's good to see you. And just before this interview, we kind of touched base and exchanged our experience on how it was during coronavirus quarantine. And I'm glad that you're okay. You look good. I mean, a bit
Yeah, a little
scruffy.
scruffy,
Yeah,
but
but
the
this
wife
it
likes
comes now. People who are clean shaved now in quarantine looks really suspicious.
right. It's like, where have you been?
Well, let me introduce you briefly. You're a consultant. You're a speaker. You're a writer. And in fact, I have this book of yours
Oh,
and your
wonderful.
dad.
That's awesome.
And in fact, during the interview, I didn't want, and I know that you don't like it to mention when you are doing something professionally, that you are son of a remarkably known figure.
Hmm.
Who
I
is,
don't mind.
who is followed by millions, who loved by millions, and myself including. But this time, this talk, I wanted to start with something which I feel would be definitely important for me. And if you can share, how come? Because your dad is known for his, personal development, etc., etc. He is a guru. I think he is one of the first people who started the whole thing. And there are
Mhm.
millions and zillions people who really were bringing themselves up using his methodology, etc. Now, you are part of the family. I presume that before writing a book, and that's what I would do, Brian would say, hey, let's try on him, on my children first. If it works, then I will put it in the book. If it doesn't, bad for you.
Right.
So I'm kidding, of course. But tell me about your childhood and tell me whether your parents were critical of you, how you remember your childhood,
Right.
who benefited to your what you are now more, your mom Barbara or your dad.
Okay.
So tell us about that. That's
Sure,
really
sure. So I think that when people kind of envision the son of Brian Tracy growing up, I think they see my dad maybe, standing in front of the room and me sitting there with maybe a notepad kind of studiously writing things
what are your
down.
goals?
Right? Show me. Do you have them on your person? But in reality, Gennady, it was it was very much like a practical education. So I'll use the example of when he taught me how to swim. He didn't like sit there and get out a book and show me the strokes. He just grabbed me, he picked me up, and he threw me in the pool. And then he watched me struggle and try to figure it out. And then, he gave me, a few days, and then he did it again. And, that's how he taught me how to swim. It's the same, thing. It's how he taught me how to ride a bike. It's like, okay, today you're going to learn how to ride a bike, and that was it. We walked outside and we just figured it out. Right. I tried and failed and tried and failed and tried and failed until I figured out how to balance, and then started to pedal and got some motion and figured out how to ride a bike. And so, every single experience where I was needed to learn a lesson, he would just figure out how to throw me into a situation where I have to figure it out. And so when I graduated university, and I said, hey, I want some career guidance. Where do you think I should go? I want to go into financial services, right? I'm going to manage other people's money, billions of dollars in my portfolio. And he said, well, why don't you get some direct sales experience? And then, I went out and I found a direct sales job, and I was very hesitant to take it because it was door-to-door selling. And, I had just graduated university. I was too good for door-to-door selling. Right. And then he got very serious with me and he said, Michael, if you do this, you'll get 10 years ahead of anybody else in business. And it was, one of those humbling moments where, like, your dad knows something, right? But there's wisdom there. But as a young man, you're always challenging that wisdom because, one of my favorite, there's a favorite little, it was like a billboard or a meme or something. And it was, teenagers, quick, right? Move out of your parents' house now while you still know everything. So it's this idea that you know everything when you're young, and as you get older, you realize how much you don't know. And so it was one of those humbling experiences. And I took the job as a door-to-door salesperson, and I obviously learned selling skills, but more importantly, it was this kind of systematic desensitization to rejection is what he wanted me to go through, right? So he wanted me to have this experience where, you know, the idea of rejection is prevalent, it holds you back, and then you go out and you experience rejection and you realize that it's not actually that big of a deal. And then you start seeing more and more opportunities, and you start getting less and less hesitant to take that positive action. And so there was no studious note taking or lecturing. It was very much getting kind of thrown into different situations and then just having to figure out how to respond.
So sort of learning by doing.
Right. And that's, you know, that's the exact same thing he does with his workshops and in his seminars and his advice. It's always like, here's the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to take the action? Like, now go do something, go try it. Right. Mm-hmm. And be prepared to fail. Like, one of the things he'll say all the time is, you know, nothing ever works the first time you try it. Right. And it usually doesn't work the second time either. Right? You have to do it over and over and over again. And then it starts to work. And then the other thing is that he'll say, or that he said in the past, which resonates with me and other people, is, you know, nobody ever starts out good at anything. Right. Nobody ever goes, I'm going to do this. And then they do it and they're really good at it. And so you have to be prepared to be bad at something before you're good at it. And then the other big thing is, you know, you don't really enjoy doing something until you're good at it. Right. And so there's this there's kind of this period, this interstitial part of anything that it was worth doing, where you're not going to be good at it and you won't enjoy it. Right. And then at some point you cross over and you get good at it and you start enjoying it. And then you go, wow, like I really enjoy doing this. I have a lot of energy for it. And so I think that was his goal for me, is self-confidence and no fear of rejection.
It's interesting because I remember that in one of your writings, I read somewhere that you've done this cold calls, and you were like known for ringing like 20,000 times, and you've got 19,000 rejections, which I thought it's pretty good ratio. But it's still really, especially for younger people, it's embarrassments, it's fear of rejection. And I think it's excellent school, but I think it can make you or break you, no? Yeah. I mean, don't you think that it was really kind of tough, like throwing yourself in the pool? I mean, obviously he would help you if you'd be really kind of in trouble, but yeah. Still it's really, I can't do that with my girls. And I wonder, you have 3 girls yourself.
Right.
And you repeat the experience throwing them in the pool. I'm even horrified to think of it.
No. So with my girls, I just get them in the pool. Really, I mean, I have a 2-year-old, almost 2, and so I take her in the pool all the time, and she's comfortable in the pool. She likes the water, but I've had experiences where, you know, I pushed, you know, one of my daughters too far for swimming, and then, you know, for months they're scared. They're uncomfortable, and so I think it's you have to use your own good subjective judgment to a large extent when you're a parent. So I don't fault my dad. So in the context, and my dad's pointed this out before, it's before he threw me in the pool. Like I had also had some swim lessons, right? People have been working with me to figure out how to swim, and I just was very resistant to trying, right? And so my dad created an opportunity for me to try by throwing me in. But I think the underlying point is that you really have to. A good mentor pushes you into situations that make you uncomfortable, and they force you to respond in a positive, productive way. And that's what he did for me growing up.
Right, because you're absolutely right. I mean, and I remember your dad saying that all these wonderful salespeople, there was a time when they were rubbish. So, but they managed to become. And if you take, let's say, your bicycle example, I mean, it's uncomfortable, it's scary, you don't know how to do it, and only then, when you master it, you start enjoying it. And that's probably everything in life is like that. So we feel very uncomfortable at first, and then we become more proficient.
Yeah. Well, so actually, there's a recent example, maybe more than 5 years ago. I was doing lots of sales training workshops, and I started getting asked like, well, will you come in? We don't have all day. Will you come in and just speak for 90 minutes? And so I told my dad, I said, hey Dad, I think I'm going to be a speaker. What do you think about that? I'm going to be a professional speaker because I'm getting asked to speak. And he said, well, how many big talks have you done? And I was like, well, I've done some sales training, I've done some workshops, interpersonal stuff, more interactive. And he's all, well, I have an engagement here in Southern California. He said, why don't you come along and I'll introduce you to the promoter, and maybe, you can find an opportunity to speak at a future program of his or whatever. So I was like, okay, great. Absolutely. And so I got dressed professionally, and I went, and I was watching him speak in the morning, and maybe 20 minutes before the break, he's like, and my son is here today, and there's at least 1,000 people in the audience. And, he'd like to come up here and speak to you for 20 minutes before the break. And I'm like, so, I get up reluctantly, and, I shared a story, but it was the same thing he's been doing my whole life, right? He's, oh, you want to be a speaker? Like, you want to learn how to swim? Okay, perfect. Well, I'll just find this opportunity, and I'll just throw you right into it.
But you're right. I mean, your dad was pretty, obviously he I don't think that he would do the same thing with Catherine. I think you were probably the, how can I say, the closest to follow your dad, even that you are in sales. Again, I don't know that, Brian Tracy children, I know, Catherine, who is a sexologist and a really wonderful person, and I know David, and you are following your dad.
Yeah, so we're all different. We're all different, but I think that the experience that I've shared, like having the sales experience and being involved in business and things of that nature has really allowed me to appreciate my father, in new and different ways as I get older, right? Because like having the experience of going door to door and knocking on doors and selling belly to belly, eye to eye, and face to face, knowing that he had that similar experience in a formative way when he was a young man, it's like, okay, well, now I understand how he thinks a little bit and his perspective and how he approaches things. And he does the same thing that I do. We both take lots of calculated risks. We both fail more than we succeed. And then we have these successes, but like they're just incremental. They're not, nobody's a 100% success all the time, right? It's calculated risk. It's being acceptance of setbacks and failures and making corrections and then trying again, and it's that iterative process that really helps people succeed. And when you succeed at something, people will go, oh, look, he's successful. Oh, he got lucky. Oh, he must be so lucky, that he got successful. And it's like, that's really not like, if luck, I mean, it's probability, right? It's just, if you try enough and you fail enough, eventually you'll succeed, but people won't see the failure, right? That's not, you don't post those on Instagram, right? Or Facebook. You just have these successes on your highlight reel. And so I think that if you're young, I mean, the best advice I would have is go out and try and just be comfortable with failure and setback, and just resolve to try again, right? And keep on trying.
Yes, it's interesting that really when we look at Instagram or Facebook, we see smiling faces of winners. We don't see many people sweating, their way to the top, and that actually increases, psychological pressure on normal people. I get usually my mood goes down if I open the Facebook and I see that people are here and there, everybody's happy, successful. Damn, what about you?
No, and that's actually, I mean, this has been proven. Actually, they've done studies, and people are substantially less happy after looking at Facebook or Instagram than they were before. and it's because this it's called, there's a quote, it's comparison is the thief of joy, right? because there's always going to be somebody more attractive. There's always going to be somebody with more money. There's always going to be somebody that lives in a bigger house, right? Wears nicer clothes, like goes to better places on vacation. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that's better than anyone. It's just, so if you compare yourself to other people, just be prepared to always not be happy after that. It's just because you're not going to compare yourself to somebody who's lesser than, right? You're not going to find the guy with the tiniest house in the city and say, I'm going to compare myself to that person. You're going to go find the guy with the biggest house in the city and say, well, why don't I have a big house like that? And, look at this guy. He just got so lucky. But you don't know that story. You don't know the background. Like what sacrifices went into all of that. So
it's interesting. There is, when I was working in Middle East, one of the very common saying, which Arabs were saying, that if you look up too long, you have this neck pain. So you better look down on people who are less privileged than you are. And if this type of comparison really makes you maybe more appreciative, maybe it's not nice that you're comparing yourself with the more, with disadvantaged people, but then you feel kind of that you have to be so grateful for what you have.
Right. Well, I think it's just, if you are going to look up to somebody and compare yourself to somebody who has something that you don't have or is more successful than you, it's just important to put it in context and ask yourself, well, what price have they paid for that success? And am I prepared to make that same investment, right? Am I going to, you don't know, but most people that are successful in the world are people who've worked their butt off, for years. And you don't see it. You don't see the 10 years, the decades and decades, the fractured relationships or whatever it is. You don't see all of that. All you see is the outcome and the end result. But when you see the hard work and the sacrifice that went into that end result, most people would probably say, I'm not willing to do it. I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. I would prefer the smaller house versus the bigger house if I have to give what that person gave to get it, right? So I think that's important. But to go back to your point about looking up and down, it's really, there's two ways of thinking, right? There's thinking about what you don't have, and there's thinking about what you have, right? And if you think about what you have, that's gratitude, right? And so you just have to affirm, like, look, I have healthy children, I have a beautiful house, I live in a beautiful place, I have a wonderful way to earn income that I enjoy doing it, right? There's so many things that we have that we don't think about. And when we think about the things that we have, we become happy. When we think about things we don't have, we're not happy. So it all comes down to gratitude.
And there is another issue. For example, I spoken to one lady, her name is Linda Kaplan-Taller. She runs one of the largest advertisement agency in the States. And she's known, by the way, for this yes advertisement of shampoo. It's true
okay.
organic experience. I mean,
right.
I don't want to grow up. I am with the Toys R Us. I mean, she created that song, a very creative lady. And she's written a couple of books, and one of them is Grid to Great, where exactly what you were mentioning, all these points. And then she's saying, I'm so annoyed, she said, that, for example, her son took part in some running competition. And 200 kids took part, and each of them got the same medal. So, and she said, it's not fair because somebody ran and prepared better.
Right.
Somebody didn't give a toss and, just walk all the way, and they've got the same medal. And she's saying this culture of making even, like not trying to bring competitiveness at the early age as a damaging thing to personality is a wrong thing. So what do you think? I mean, were you forced to be competitive when you were growing up?
The things I cared about. I honestly, so just to go back to that, the whole idea of giving everybody a medal for participation, I think that is damaging to a large extent, because I mean, I think the people who win, right, need to be celebrated, and you have to reward merit. Our whole society rewards merit, right? Right. Your ability to work hard and accomplish things is how you get notoriety and how you make money in business and so on and so forth. And I think when we're rewarding participation with accolades, what we're saying is that that like everybody's emotional state should dictate, the award. and emotions are wonderful, right? They're wonderful indicators. They can tell you if you're moving in the right or the wrong direction, if you're with the right or the wrong person. But they shouldn't be the sole determining factor on whether or not you get an award, right? That it's like emotions are a lot like weather, right? They come in and they go out, and you can't predict them. And so we should base, how we reward people, even young people, with some objective standard, right? Like, you were the fastest, you crossed the finish line the first, right? Here's your medal. But when we start awarding people because we're sensitive about their emotional states, I think we hurt them more than help them. Is my opinion. I mean, I'm sure everybody has their own opinion on this.
But in your case, in your particular case, your dad was kind of stimulating you to become better. I presume that better in sport, better in swimming, or it was like not the stress that much that you have to work.
Yeah. So I think what he wanted me to do is become better, right, than I was the day before. So I mean, it was continuous personal development, right? So I was competing against myself, right? And he would challenge me to become a better person, become somebody who works harder, right? But based on my own internal metric. It wasn't about, winning in a team sport. I mean, that was like, for in his mind, it was like, that was great exercise. It was good, camaraderie. But for my own developmental purposes, it was, are you better than you were yesterday? And then you should strive to be better than you were yesterday, and measure your own performance, and then compete against yourself, right?
Well, that's his whole philosophy, that really you have to measure, yourself to your yesterdays,
right,
to your yesterday self. So,
and that's the only competition that matters, right? Is are you better than you were yesterday? Are you making improvements? Like, are you measuring the right things? So if we're trying to lose weight, we weigh ourselves in the beginning, and then we make an effort, and then we weigh ourselves again. And if the scale goes down, then we've succeeded. If it goes up, we've failed. It's as simple as that. And you just figure out your metrics for whatever it is. And a lot of people, their main metric is money, right? So did you make, more money than you did last month or last year? And that's their metric, or maybe it's time with your children, free time, time to spend with your kids. So I think everybody gets to decide how they define success, and then decide on how to improve over time.
It's interesting that another issue, which for me is very important, when I was in consulting, service, and I was traveling extensively, I thought I'm a great dad. I was coming home on the weekend. I was spending time, and I thought quality time is more important than quantity time. And my daughter, Katerina, she was like, I was giving her a lot of attention, and I was saying that, well, if you'd like to go on your holiday, whenever, we'll go, me and you together. And we did. And then she wanted to go through some psychological school in the States, actually, on Hoffman method. And she had to fill a questionnaire. And I asked, what sort of questionnaires? I don't need your answers, but give me the questions. And she sent it by accident. And I'm probably terrible by admitting that. And she sent me her questionnaire, which was filled by her. And I couldn't resist the temptation of looking into that. And in the bracket where what's your major sort of you're upset about, she said, my dad was never at home. And I thought, I'm super dad. I'm giving her money. She's going fantastic childhood with travel. But she said, my dad was never at home. And for me, it was like cold shower. I thought, well, she's right. If she believes that, then she's right. And my question is, your dad is known for his personal success. He really started, we know how he started, small, and then he turned into guru and followed, etc. Now, you were growing at that time, and your dad has got 4 children. So whether you had enough time from your dad, and do you have some regrets that he didn't give you his time as much as you wanted?
No. So, I mean, yes, he was, there were times where he was traveling for most of the year, more than half of the year. But when he was home, he made it a point to always be available, So I can remember the countless hundreds, thousands of occasions, he would always be working, right? He was a workaholic. But if I walked into his office, he would stop whatever he was doing, and that was it. I mean, it was just, oh, you want to go play basketball? Let's go play basketball. Like whatever it was, like, let's just go. Let's go do it. And he always stop whatever he was doing, and we'd go do it. We go see a movie, or, go for a walk, whatever it was. And so he was like that with all of his kids. So, I mean, he did do a wonderful job of making us the priority when he was home. And then also, as I got older, I realized, he's out there doing this so that he can provide for his family. This is his vocation, and it's his profession, and he brings him great joy, so, I mean, this is a matter of fact. And keep in mind that I think it might be different, for my sisters. I think girls and boys are different in that respect. And I'm not a behavioral psychologist or anything like that.
So girls need more time, probably, right? From there.
Yeah, but I am a father now of 3 girls, so I can speak from that experience. And I do know that I don't have to interact with my children for them to feel my presence, if that makes sense. If I'm at home, there's a different dynamic and energy versus when I'm gone. And I know they feel that. And I know with my oldest daughter, especially when she was younger, she's 8 now, but when she was, 4 and 5, and I'd go on a business trip and come back, she would be angry with me, right? There was an anger there. And that kind of hit me right in the chest, because, you have to think, well, how are my actions affecting my children? And, especially when they're really young, like, is it, can I make better decisions? And so that's when my wife and I came to the conclusion, actually, Gennady, this was your suggestion, is we agreed that I would not travel more than 1 week a month. At least while the kids are young. The kids, they're going to grow up so fast. And so 1 week a month is all and right now, I mean, obviously nobody's going anywhere. But I think it was a wonderful suggestion, Gennady. And I think a lot of people have to make intentional decisions like that and have those discussions early on, because at the end of the day, money is not that important, right? You need enough, right? But I mean, and they've done studies, once you have a certain amount, depending on what country you live in, your standard of living doesn't get much better, right? And if you cross over a certain threshold of money and you have a ton of money, in fact, you have a whole new list of anxieties and problems, right? So money is important. You should have enough. But once you have enough, I mean, you really need to focus on the things that are going to matter forever, which are your family, your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do remember our talk when I said, look, try to spend as much time as possible, because as I said, I learned my lesson, and now I changed my whole career. When I have now 2 small children, I stopped doing consulting work. There was fantastic propositions of being a team leader in Papua New Guinea or somewhere, which I would be, excited to go, new places, new people, new countries. But then I thought, well, and then what? 2 years of my life, of their life, I cannot take them with me, because it's kind of too challenging, and some countries are not really safe. And then what? And I stopped doing that. And, I moved into this promotional thing and other things. But, and I'm happy, and I'm proud of that, in fact. And in fact, my life became quality time, quality from the quality point of view, became better. So I feel that I'm giving more as a father, and I'm not just, thousands of kilometers away doing something and lonely. And so.
Yeah, but I think just to go back to the point, it's like we're getting better, right? we're looking at the past, we're analyzing what happened, and then we're making better decisions for the future, right? That's the point, is to figure out how to become better than we were yesterday.
Yes. And I like another exercise, which is a little bit sort of green, but it's like what you would like to be written on your tombstone, you know, whether you earn millions or you were a good dad, you know,
Right.
how you'd like to be remembered. And this answer is so clear and so kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. 100%. People don't know how to listen anymore. They don't. As soon as somebody starts talking, they start thinking about what they're going to say next. And you have these back and forth conversations that aren't really dialogues at all. And it's something that we have to work on all the time, right? It's not something that we go, okay, we've developed our skill in listening, and then that's it. Every conversation you have is an exercise.